checkout music right there. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to day 2 of Resolve. I'm Meghna Suresh. I am Replicant's head of product, and we have with us Benjamin Gleitzman, who you met yesterday, CTO and co-founder at Replicant. All right, we got an exciting agenda for you today. Our goal for this session is actually to take you behind the curtain a little on our research and development efforts at Replicant. So at the end of the session, we want everyone to feel like you fully understand what we're building here at Replicant, what that overall product vision is, and what all of the stuff is that we're building and have cooking and in the works to advance that vision. So let's get right into it. Who can tell me what that is? It's an example of inter-office mail. So as I was preparing for this presentation, thinking about, all these great ideas that were shared yesterday in the OpenAI talk around, well, how is AI going to transform how we work, how we live? And so the last sort of paradigm shifting innovation was probably the internet. And so it was kind of helpful to think about how did we work before the internet? And I think one of the things we just take for granted today, more or less, is instant seamless communication. If you're in the marketing team, you want to communicate with the finance team, you shoot off an email or Slack or what have you. But at one point, you used to have to actually print off a communication, put it in this interdepartment mail envelope, have a physical courier send it from the marketing department to the finance department. So it's just one of those things we used to have to do, and now the whole paradigm's changed. And it's something we just take for granted every day. And the reason we bring this up is that we truly believe that with machine intelligence and AI, we are in another paradigm-shifting moment. This is another internet moment for how all of us are going to work and live. And we heard a lot about this yesterday, right? It's not just in the customer service space that we see this happening. Brad talked about how the work of doctors and scientists and teachers is going to dramatically change. And we really kind of see it as the end of mundane work. If you think of all of the time that we spend doing data entry, all sorts of other repetitive tasks, that's exactly the kind of thing that we think that this new crop of machine learning and AI models is actually going to help us almost completely eliminate and allow all of us to focus on the higher order tasks, the things that we all really want to do. We also got to hear from a number of our customers yesterday on just all of the pain around customer service, right? And what it takes to hire agents. We were doing a customer session on Monday, and I think one of our customers said, what agent? Like there's hardly anybody you can hire who is willing to do this job where you have to answer the same question repetitively 100 times a day. And so that's just a huge challenge. And we believe that the solution really lies in taking an automation first approach. And so before we get into all the exciting product announcements and talk more about Gen AI and what all of that means for our space, I don't want to talk about what it actually means to be automation first, because it's not a totally intuitive phrase. But the first thing about this really is you're automation first, you're actually looking to resolve the vast majority of issues through automation. So today, we're able to automate a substantial proportion of issues that our customers have, 30, 40%. Where we aim to get is actually being able to automate away that vast majority, right? Starting to get into 60, 70, 80% automation. So just really push the boundary on what we're able to resolve through automation. Also, we're automation first, we're not automation only, right? So the agent is still a really critical piece of this. We're building all of this technology so we can elevate the agent and ensure that that agent is able to focus on that work of the future, which is going to look very different than the work we used to do in the past. This is going to require a different type of user interface for the agent, right? When you're trying to do specialized high-skill work, the tools that you need at your disposal look very different. So that's what we're going to be moving towards as well, and you'll see that reflected in some of our product announcements. And finally, we aim to be transformative, not incremental. We talked about this a little bit yesterday as well, right? The slew of tools out there, from CCAS to workforce management, all of the other tools at your disposal, they produce a 5% improvement, a 10% improvement. And what we're trying to do is 5x or 10x, right? So really bring about a huge shift in how things are done in the contact center. So with that, I wanted to talk a little bit about just the journey that got us here before we talk about what's next. And obviously, with Gen AI, there's this transformative new technology paradigm that's on the horizon, and it looks set to change everything we do and how we automate and, how we build our thinking machines and how you deploy automation, make that much easier. But it's worth thinking about kind of where we came from a little bit, right? Because these models didn't just burst onto the scene overnight. They're built on top of, the first generation of what are called transformer models. And these came out in that 2017, 2018 timeframe, the very first language models, much smaller language models. But they were the first ones that, were able to understand some of the nuances of human speech, right? They were able to understand the meaning and the context of words in a sentence. And that's kind of what we built the first iteration of Replicant on. And when we came to Resolve last year, what we announced was, a comprehensive platform that actually spanned multiple languages and multiple different modalities and, a slew of tooling that we even talked about on the agent panel yesterday, right? There's a lot of tools that are required to deploy this automation and stand it up and administer it and make sure it's all working successfully. So a whole slew of products that we brought on stage last year. But I think that the thing that we've always been thinking about as we push toward the future is, even with all of that, right, with the last generation of these transformer models, there was always this gap between what, a machine could do and what agents could do. And that's largely because with that last crop of transformer models, you had to teach them literally everything about everything. So if you are a, healthcare focused contact center and you're looking to build automation that is able to schedule appointments on behalf of your patients, you have to teach that system everything about scheduling appointments, right? Every single way that a caller might call in and all of the different intents they might say, and supply loads and loads and loads of training data and actually script out that entire flow and make sure it's all been tested to a T. And every time a change needs to be made, it's quite a bit of effort to go in and fix all of that. Or anytime the machine doesn't understand something that gets said on the line, you have to go back and add that in as a training phrase. So what we were running into was, for any automation to be any good, it required heavy customization, a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of work. This gets really unscalable when you start getting into the long tail. So one big challenge was, when you're building automation, this is fine if you're tackling, an issue that's a huge chunk of your customer service volume. But the minute you try to get in the long tail, it just doesn't scale. The fact that you have to teach it everything about everything also doesn't scale, right? So these were just some of the things that have been in the back of our minds. And when Gen AI came onto the scene, it presented the perfect solution to all of these problems. And so that's where we really want to introduce a whole new paradigm for how automation is built and deployed in a contact center. And we're calling it Replicant 2.0 because it really is a 2.0. It is a new version of our system, our platform, our software, a whole new paradigm. And hopefully that's what you're about to see here. Pretty much everything we used to do in the past, and the way we used to do it is just going to be fundamentally radically different. So the way that we build conversations is going to get much, much faster and easier. The effort that it takes to stand that automation up, the level of sophistication that these systems are going to be able to handle, we really do now think it is realistic to aspire for that automation being as good as speaking with your best agent. I know it sounds like a lofty goal, but we do feel like with this new technology paradigm that future is actually near. And so with that, just want to talk about some of what Replicant 2.0 really affords for our customers. We're going to see, an unprecedented measure of scalability and flexibility in the conversations. So, the ways that, machines and humans interact, it's going to replicate much more closely what a human-to-human interaction looks like. You'll see in a demo shortly, when a person throws multiple, intents and entities and all sorts of different thoughts and ideas in a single phrase, the machine's going to be able to understand that in a way that we just weren't able to do previously. We're going to be able to do long tail automation. Gotti showed a little bit of this in his demo yesterday. The probably fewer than 1% of callers are going to call and ask whether you can bring a bottle of Whistle Pig on a plane, right? But we're able to handle that without having to explicitly program that into a thinking machine. So
finally, that long tail is something that's actually going to be attainable for us in a cost-effective and scalable way. You'll see a lot more advanced reasoning, right? And you saw a little bit of this in the FAQ demo as well. The system actually had to do some reasoning to determine, oh, this person's asking about alcohol. That's actually a question about liquids. I have a knowledge article here about liquids and how much liquid I can bring per the TSA policy. It's 3.4 ounces. It's doing a lot of that reasoning based on a limited corpus of information and providing a real-time response. That is a really, really impressive new paradigm shift. And finally, we're going to also show some voices, because a huge part of this experience is not just the content of what it's said, but also how it's delivered and the tone. And so what you'll see is actually some of these new voices that we're going to put on our automation are going to sound more or less indistinguishable from a human. And to that, maybe show of hands, who's played with the voice game upstairs? All right. Who was able to get above 10? Not bad, Rob. There's very, very few. That game's pretty hard, right? Yeah, it's. I mean, that's the. I tried it myself, and I was like, this is embarrassing. I should be getting all of them right. So I just kind of hung up halfway through. But that's the name of the game. These voices truly are indistinguishable from speaking with your best agent. And so let's announce, some of the new products that we have that actually help us attain this vision. And you got a little bit of a preview of this in Gaudi's presentation yesterday, but it's a combination of Gen AI components, Gen AI used for FAQs, what we're calling AI handoff, which is the experience that an agent will have when the content of an automated conversation is handed off to an agent. The premium voices, which we just talked about, and a new crop of transcription models that are actually going to be able to make much better sense of human speech before it even gets sent to a Gen AI model. And so let's talk about what each one of these actually is. Hopefully all of you remember some of the content from Ben's hallucination talk yesterday, and it provided a little bit of the groundwork for Gen AI, how these models actually work, and also what some of the pitfalls are, because that's also really important to keep in mind here. Because we actually designed Gen AI components to be a natural first foray for any customer into Gen AI. You're going to hear from Tanya in a few minutes here. She's going to come up on stage and talk about how she deployed this product. But the reason why we think this is a very natural first step for any customer to deploy Gen AI in their contact center is it's a heavily guardrailed approach. So think of this as, taking that general purpose model that Benjamin talked about yesterday. It knows how to play chess. It knows how to generate a musical scale or a song. It knows how to do a whole bunch of things. And what we're then doing is we're taking that general purpose model and training it on how to do a specific task. So we've built a whole slew of components that are really good at doing things like classification or data collection. So effectively, this model is now not going to be very good at being able to play chess or generate a musical score, but it is going to be really, really good at doing data collection in a customer service context, because that is the task that we have fine-tuned it on. It's going to be really good at doing classification of the different reasons why somebody calls into a contact center. And, this has actually been a perennial challenge might be a question for any of our customers or someone on our delivery team today when we have to write intents. How many training phrases do we have to put in each one? Any thoughts there? What was that? Thousands? It's a little less than that, but it is like hundreds, because it's 20 to 50 per intent. There's over 10 intents, right? So pretty quickly gets into hundreds, or, in some very large thinking machines could be thousands of training phrases that have to go into this. Guess how many are required in the new Gen AI components? 0. These models are what are called zero-shot learners. So you don't have to provide examples of a task that you need this model to generalize on. That's something that we've already trained it on in that fine-tuning step. And that's something that it's just able to do out of the box. So you no longer have to go through that laborious exercise of telling it all of the ways in which a customer might say a certain phrase that corresponds to a certain intent. That completely goes out the window. And so this is way more scalable, right? Think about things like data collection, right? This is bread and butter to customer service. You might need to authenticate a customer by their first and last name, capture a few other pieces of structured data, and people might provide that information in any order. They might say one thing and then go back and correct it. All of that behavior comes out of box in our Gen AI components. So our customers don't have to think about how to do any of that either. And finally, components are actually very, very locked down in that you're able to pre-script and pre-program all of the behavior. So think of this as a product that actually kind of harnesses Gen AI's brain, but not its voice. So you don't let it speak to the customer directly, but you do engage all of its smarts. So that's an important thing to keep in mind, and why it's a pretty ideal place to start with Gen AI, because it's heavily guardrailed, very secure. Ben talked a little bit about things like prompt injection. All of those protections are also built right into the system. All right. We've seen some amazing results deploying Gen AI components in production. So we're launching this today, but we've had it in production for a few months now. You heard briefly from Hannah of Paramount Hospitality yesterday, but we've seen some phenomenal results deploying this out in the wild, up to a 10 percentage point improvement in metrics like resolution, which for a hotel booking or reservation use case, it's a pretty massive result. We've also seen a massive reduction in the number of turns or the length of a conversation, right? Orders of magnitude reduction, in this case, over 40%. So that's really impressive, and it's because customers are able to throw all of this information at the system in a very unstructured and flexible way. But don't take it from me, because now we get to hear from Tanya Weigelt of CAA, and she's actually the first customer that deployed Gen AI with us. And let's hear some of what she's got to say on this. Tanya?
We were waiting for the music.
We waiting for music.
Water.
Oh, I'm good. Thank you so much.
Hey, everybody. Great.
Hello. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Thank you for being here with us today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Gen AI, you were the first customer to go live.
I did not know that.
Well, now you do.
I thought there were a few. I thought there were a few, but I didn't know I was the first. So that's like, I'm so honored.
Maybe we should have talked about this. But no,
It's okay. It's back.
But no, you actually went live with this. It was just weeks after ChatGPT went live. So
Yeah.
you're a real sort of first mover. But maybe tell us, when we talked about this back in March or April, so it's been a little while, but what was going through your mind when you first got the pitch on?
I didn't know what the heck you were talking about. I really didn't. I was looking at you thinking, what? And I think Dan was there, and he stopped you and said, maybe you want to explain to Tanya what ChatGPT is. I was a little embarrassed, thinking, why did I know this? Because some of my team said, oh, Tanya, they were very excited when I told them about it. But hearing what you were talking about, I thought, well, yeah, let's sign me up. I want to try that.
Yeah.
Anything that helps the member experience, anything that helps the thinking machine do it better, I'm all for that.
Yeah. And I think we also have a nice little slide with some results up here. But want to maybe spend a minute talking about just what impact this produced for your callers, and maybe even a little bit of an introduction on what your call flow looks like and what that result is you're trying to.
So for road service, we have, I think, 3 or 4 different use cases. And the thing that we tried for ChatGPT was the make and model collection for cars. So when you get to read what the customer says or what the member is calling in for, you get all kinds of variations of what kind of car they drive. You get the Hyundai Accord, which doesn't exist, the Chevy, Chev, Dodge. And we're thinking, you don't even know what you drive. So it tends to be, depending on who's calling, a little bit of a sore spot. It's not very easy to collect the make and model. Also, we need a year and we need a color in case there's, 2 Honda Accords sitting there. We want to make sure we're going to the right vehicle. So year, make, model, color, and I think that's it. But that, I think, takes 4 different asks from the thinking machine. And there are times that the customer will just give it all. I have a 1985 Ford Escort. I'm aging myself here. That's beige, but the thinking machine without the AI will just take what it needs. So it'll take the Ford Escort and then it'll ask, what year is it? And I'm thinking to myself when I see it, well, they told you. So just go back. So this Replicant 2.0 allows it to remember what the customer said without it having to re-ask it or go back. It just says, okay, you already told me the age of the year, you already told me the color, okay, let's move on. So here's the results. It performs the same way as it did before. So the kick-out rate is the same. So there wasn't any degradation on that. But what I really liked is that it took one less turn or one less question to get that information from the customers. Mm-hmm. So that saves in time and it saves in frustration. So those are the two big pushers for me.
Yeah, I think the one thing to keep in mind is this was also a flow that had been continually tweaked and optimized and trained over the course of over a year. And then out the gate, this model was able to perform the same. And in recent weeks, it's actually inched ahead. So we're actually at like 93, 94%. So it's just getting better and better all the time. We should have.
Oh no, but I have when I look at the completion rate, which I do regularly, I see it go up 0.5% here, 1% there. And so we started off this year around 39%. We're at about 43% on that app. So, it's little wins like that. It's the progress. It's not perfection, but I do want to see it go up, and every little bit counts.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what are you most excited to try next?
So my boss and I have had a debate on which one I like or which one we like. I like personally the triage because there's a lot of people who, don't know what's wrong with their car. So do you know what's wrong when the car breaks down? I don't. And I think Angie said it yesterday that my car won't start. It sounds like you need a boost. No, I need a tow. Why? Tell me why you need a tow, because my car won't start. And then you get into this loop of, oh gosh. So using the AI, we're hoping that it will ask a little bit more questions or a few more questions to do a good triage. We also, the address collection is a sore spot for us. So my boss wants address.
All right.
I say personally that won't help us with the completion rate because we send it through without the tow destination. So I think I won on that one. Well, so those are the two ones that we want to look at for the next all right, foreseeable future.
There's no reason we can't do both. So
Oh yay!
Don't make promises you can't keep on stage. But,
yeah, that's okay.
For future me, but
yeah,
that's great. And I think one of the interesting conversations we actually had was with your CISO, right?
Yeah.
With your head of security, and I was actually struck by how informed he was about ChatGPT and kind of all of these risks. And we had a really great conversation about that. So maybe for the folks in the room who are more security conscious, or are going to have to take this up to their security team, any thoughts, advice on how to do this in a safe, guardrailed way?
Well, I think the word is guardrailed, really. You assured us that we were not giving any kind of personal identification. So it's just make and model. That's really, there's no harm in that. And our motto at CAA is we're obsessed with member safety. And that's not just about their physical safety. It's also about the safety of their information, the safety of who they are and their identity. So we're very risk adverse when it comes to safety. They wanted to have some information from you. I will not pretend that I knew what you guys were talking about. I sat there and I tried to learn as much as I could. But the end result is that we give them, or from what I understand, the thinking machine uses that little piece of information, make and model, and they immediately scrub it. So we don't have to, they don't save anything, and that's the agreement that you made with, I think it's Azure, right? So that's all we ask for. So the next one is triage. Again, what is anybody going to use that information for? There's no risk in that. Address, perhaps there could be, but I think that we can jump that hurdle pretty easily.
Yep. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today and speaking to your experience and being a pioneer for Gen AI.
It's my honor. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. So hopefully that kind of gave everyone a flavor of what you can do with Gen AI components, right? You can take a very, very specific task, something like data collection, right? I want to capture the make, model, year of a vehicle, or I want to capture, these specific entities and the specific call flow. And these components provide a guardrailed, out-of-box way to do that with very, very little lift from our customers. And that's really exciting because everyone in the room has these bread and butter use cases like authentication and intake and scheduling, like things that are just, figuring out what intent the person's calling about and capturing a whole slew of entities. But we were talking about this long tail problem, right? This issue where people might also call about anything under the sun, and your agent is able to handle that today in a conversational and natural way, right? So even if what you're getting is what we call a tail query, right? That thing that someone calls about less than 1% of the time, you want to be able to answer that. You want to be able to handle it, because when you take that entire long tail, it could comprise a pretty huge chunk of your customer service issues. And so this is where GenAI FAQs really come into the picture, right? The components are really about optimizing more for control. The FAQs are really about optimizing more for flexibility. And so one really important thing to mention at this point is it's not an all or nothing proposition. So you could think about constructing a thinking machine flow that is comprised of both these, components as well as these FAQs. So you could have a pretty guardrailed implementation where you define all of your scripts and workflows and it's completely deterministic, but bolt on this FAQ component just to handle that long tail. And what this actually does is, GenAI is both the brain and the voice in this case. So you saw this in Gaudi's keynote yesterday. In that instance, when we call and we ask about, hey, can I bring this on board? What's your carry-on policy? The GenAI model is actually going into a knowledge base that's been predefined. And it's doing what's called retrieval. You heard Brad talk about this in the OpenAI talk yesterday as well. We've augmented the system with retrieval. So what it's doing is it's going to a corpus of information to get that right answer. And we have guardrailed it so it only goes to that corpus of information. So again, we're coercing the model to forget all about playing chess or being able to write Shakespeare or do any one of the millions of things that these models know how to do, only go into that knowledge corpus. And when Gaudi asked it that question yesterday, can I bring Whistlepig on the plane? We can tell you exactly which knowledge articles it referenced to produce that answer. So it's fully explainable system. So we can go, decompose the problem, go figure out exactly what it did under the hood, what were the top ranked articles, which ones did it choose, and then it paraphrases this natural response. So, the hard thing about the long tail is you can't possibly pre-script a response to every single thing a customer might say in the real world. And that's where it's really valuable and useful to be able to generate a contextual response on the fly. And so this becomes really, really useful in combination, in concert with these GenAI components. All right, let's talk a little bit about AI handoff. So now that we've talked about using GenAI to actually handle that actual conversational flow, the core automation engine, if you will, it's really important to then think about what happens next, right? Because the next step is for that automation to hand off to an agent. How many people are familiar with what screen pops look like today in most contact center systems? Looks a little bit like that image on the left. It's usually unformatted HTML. There's some severe character limits, so there's very little information you can actually pass in. And we're expecting an agent who has a whole bunch of callers waiting on the line to squint at this tiny little piece of unformatted text on a screen, somehow gain all of the context that they wish to acquire from that call and take it from there, which is a really unrealistic expectation. And it's something that cuts into the net savings, the handle time savings that everybody in this room is looking for when deploying automation. And so we want to change that paradigm. With AI handoff, what we're actually producing is a Gen AI summary of an interaction, which is then presented in a really intuitive and easy user interface. And you're going to see this in our demo in a second here, where any kind of rich media, all of the context, all of the information that's collected is surfaced and escalated to that agent, including the very first phrase that the agent can say in a conversation. So they can peruse that context at their leisure while actually knowing, hey, I see you're calling about X issue. Let's get into that, right? So that's really useful in that handoff process. We've talked quite a bit about voices, so I won't dwell on it too much here because I'm standing between you and a live demo, which I'm sure everybody's eager to see. But I think it's really important to kind of think about what happens for user experience as we keep pushing the bounds on voices, because we were actually having a meeting with our customers on Monday, and one of them actually raised the point of, is this too uncanny valley? Like, do we actually want the voices to sound this good? And so I think one important thing to think about is, how do we actually design the system such that, when the voices are this good, right? When the vast majority of the people in this room, including me, can't tell the difference between an AI voice and a human voice, how do we present to the customer in a way that is honest and authentic, right? So it just, for us, reinforces this principle that we want to be really transparent with our end users about the fact that this is a machine. It's not a human, right? That phrase that Benjamin used yesterday is more than human. It's a different type of entity. And so we just want to keep thinking about how to impress that upon a customer. It becomes increasingly important, that transparency and authenticity here. And finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about transcription here, because if you think about all of the things that need to happen in that chain of events, when a thinking machine provides a response to the customer, the one thing we haven't really talked about is that very first step in the process, right? A call comes in, a customer says something, hey, can you help me with my bill? And the first thing that needs to happen is taking that audio signal through copper wire and actually transcribing that into speech. And that is a really, really hard problem. I mean, there are a lot of general purpose models out there by Google, by Amazon. They do a reasonable job in the general case. But historically, where they've always fallen short is being able to handle these really challenging types of entities, right? Things like a 16-digit alphanumeric sequence, a long member ID, email addresses. Those are really, really hard. And this is just a perennial pain point, one of the biggest blockers we've seen in being able to improve resolution. And so what we've gone ahead and released this year is a whole slew of custom transcription models that actually improve the performance of these types of entities by a whopping 30%. So this is a huge breakthrough in how accurately we're able to capture those bread and butter entity types for all of our customers. And we hope to see this get rolled out for almost all of our customers in this room in the coming weeks and months. All right. So I've gotten to tell you a lot about all of the exciting new advancements that are coming live today, but nothing is as effective as showing you. And so to do that, I would like to invite on the stage Benjamin Gleitzman to help fire up our demo.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Magda. Really appreciate it. So, I thought I would come up here and just press play on that pre-recorded video that we already made beforehand, right?
Okay, here's a problem.
Okay.
Gotti did a live demo yesterday.
Oh, he did, didn't he?
Do we also have to do a live demo?
Yeah, I think we probably should. Everyone wants to see a live demo, right? Yeah, that's how.
All right, just call it.
Yeah, that sounds good. So let me just give this a little refresh here. So I'm going to be calling in to, this is going to be a first notice of loss example. And so I'll call in on my phone. You'll also hear it sort of broadcast on the mic as well. And so listen for a lot of the pieces that Meghna just went over. A lot of these Gen AI components. You'll see the AI handoff there at the end. And then we'll break it down for you, and so you can sort of see how it all went. So without further ado, let's give this a shot.
Thank you for calling Countryside Insurance. I'm a thinking machine on a recorded line. I was able to locate a policy linked to this phone number. Am I speaking with Benjamin?
That's me.
Perfect. I have your policy right in front of me. How can I help you today?
I've got a problem.
So I can resolve your issue. Can you tell me more about the problem?
Yeah, I got in a fender bender on Highway 24 near the Trinity Lane exit. I drive a gray Honda, and this other Tesla just clipped me. It was a total hit and run.
I understand you were involved in an accident. Are you currently in a safe place?
I was able to pull into a Love's travel stop.
Okay, let's help create a claim right now. Are there any injuries?
We're all fine, thank you.
It's good to hear that there were no injuries and that you are in a safe place. To complete your claim in less than 4 minutes, I'll need to collect a bit more information. I heard you were driving a gray Honda. Is that the one you have on file?
You got it.
If you have it, what's the license plate of the other vehicle?
Let me find it.
Sure, I'll hold.
So my dash cam caught it, and it's a California plate. It's X is in X-ray, Y is in Yellowstone, 8756.
I got a California plate XY 8756. Is that correct?
Actually, it's X as in X-ray, Z as in zebra.
That's XZ 8756, right?
That's the one.
Thanks. Just a few more questions. Were there any passengers in the vehicle?
My partner was in the passenger seat, and we got a toddler in the back.
Are you able to send me a photo of the damage to the vehicle to assist with your claim?
I'm happy to.
I'll text you a link. Please open it and attach photos of the front, back, and sides of the vehicle. I'll be here if you have questions.
All right, so I've got the link, and I'm going to open it up, and I'll take a photo of the front of the vehicle, and the side of the vehicle, and the back of the vehicle, and the other side, and send that in.
Thanks for submitting the photos. Would you like to schedule a repair at an authorized car service center?
I better do that. My ride is looking pretty bad.
There are two options based on your current location in Nashville, Tennessee: Fred's Auto Repair and Music City Motors. Which would you prefer?
Who can see me the earliest?
Music City Motors has availability tomorrow morning at 9 to drop off your vehicle. Would you like to book it?
Does my policy cover a rental car while my vehicle's in the shop?
Yes. As a Platinum member, you are entitled to a complimentary rental car while the repairs are being made. You will have to book the rental using the credit card we have on file. Would you like to verify that card now?
Let's do it.
Just so you know, we won't be recording this next part of the call while I take your payment details. I see a credit card on file ending in 9884. Can you please confirm the 3-digit security code on the back of the card?
Yes, 376.
Thanks. Your card has been verified. Would you like to complete the booking tomorrow at 9 for Music City Motors?
Please and thank you.
Your booking is confirmed. A confirmation message has also been sent via text and email. Have you contacted the police to file an incident report?
No, I haven't, and it's not something that I've done before. I'm actually feeling a bit shaken up. I wonder if you'd be able to transfer me to someone who can help.
Sure. Please hold while I transfer you to a representative. They will have a full record of this call.
Hello, Benjamin. I understand you've been in a hit-and-run incident and need help filing a police report. I'm here to assist you with that.
You don't need to, re-authenticate me?
I got all that information right in front of me.
And you got all those photos I sent in?
I'm looking at that right here. I do love that bright green car. I'm really sorry. It's all banged up.
Wow, fantastic. I feel so taken care of. Thank you. All right, so that's the future. That's really the future of what these conversations are going to look like. That was a 4-minute call, but I don't think it felt like that. I mean, it felt fast, it felt accurate, it was very contextual, and you see with the AI handoff that it's a really seamless, you're getting the savings of that average handle time when the agent picks it up. So I thought we'd maybe break it down a little bit and talk about how that worked and really what made it possible.
Let's do it. So do you want to maybe first just talk about this, single word phrase that you used here, problem?
Geez, I see this all the time, and I think the voices are going to help a lot here because people hear that, semi-robotic voice and they say problem, billing. I see Rob here, his ears are burning when he thinks about this kind of intent disambiguation. And so the ability to go from, instead of saying problem, oh, I didn't catch that, from problem, hey, so I can help you resolve that problem, tell me a little bit more. We're trying to get, and it really is kind of a retraining of customer behavior. We're trying to get people to feel comfortable explaining themselves in full sentences, talking a little bit more about what the problem really is, because, the IVRs of the past couldn't handle this stuff. And so we're really doing a kind of re-education here of how to do that, intent capture, that disambiguation, all on one turn. And so it's like a shift in mindset.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting here is, you were able to you were engaged by the thinking machine, and then you just went for it. You were like, I'm going to tell you all about this problem I had. I was on the highway, I got in a fender bender, I have this kind of car. I mean, this is the kind of thing that with the previous generation of transformer models was just really, really hard to capture. And now...
Once people get over that hump of I really can express myself in the way I want to, they're going to let it all out. And all of that information is really useful because we can use it for this, complex data capture. But it's also just going to give us more data for the retraining as well. At the end of this call, we can look at what went well, what didn't go so well, what were the data sources that we wish we had access to, what are the APIs that maybe we want to continue to build out to increase this resolution. So any information that we can get our callers to express themselves in, the more that they can give us, the better we're going to be to go on for this kind of multi-intent turn capture. And because you're getting all this information on one turn, calls are 30% shorter, great for the caller. Your cost is 30% less because you're not spending that amount of time on the phone. We mentioned the 10% higher success rate in overall resolution. That's huge. And the CSAT's going up. So like every metric is kind of moving in the correct direction. This really is the dream of the automation that we're looking for. So Magda, why don't you tell us a little bit about, you spoke about logical reasoning. I actually don't believe that the machine is doing the reasoning, but it's definitely able to capture this intelligence behind the scenes. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it might not seem like a lot, but it's really cool that you just tell it, I have a toddler in the back, and if it needs to resolve that to how many children and adults are in the vehicle, it just knows that a toddler is a type of child, right? That is not something the previous generation of models were able to do. And while it's not exactly reasoning, it's this entire corpus of information from the internet these models are trained on that allow it to just make these types of inferences that were just never possible. And again, we did not train the system to know that toddlers are children. Just knew that.
Yeah, I love this one as well. So I think, getting these contextual answers, I wanted to say I was safe, but I didn't say I was safe. I said I pulled into this Love's travel stop. And so I think being able to infer that, hey, okay, they're at a travel stop, so they're probably not on the side of the road, and they're probably not, in kind of like a dangerous area. A similar thing could have been done with hey, could you snap a picture of where you're located? And then we could analyze that image and say, oh, they're pulled into a parking lot spot. It looks like they're fine. Versus we snap a picture of an image and they're right on the side of the road and the cars are whizzing by. And this can really give us a lot more contextual information on exactly what's going on the conversation. So I love to see that.
Yeah.
Magda, why don't you tell us a little bit about this kind of state-of-the-art transcription? I know you just touched on it.
Yeah, so this is the kind of thing that is just really hard to do, both getting that alphanumeric capture right the first time, but then also, when we say something like, actually it's XZ, right? The previous models just wouldn't know where to make that correction, and these models know, okay, well, you said XY before, and now you're saying XZ, you're probably replacing the Y with the Z, right? These types of logical reasoning elements are also really key.
Yeah, it's what a human would do when you corrected them. You wouldn't say that's XZ and they say, oh, that's just XZ, right? I mean, this, it's just saving the caller time. Why do you need them to restate everything? Or hey, that last 9 that I gave you was actually an 8. And so being able to, really understand the reasoning behind what's going on there is fantastic.
Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, so, I brought my little car here. I thought that would be kind of fun to do, but, there's so much that you can get through this device. I mean, audio is fantastic, but being able to snap a photo of where you are, a photo of the vehicle, you've already got to collect some of this information for the various turns you're going to be using, so that's great. You'll also notice it got my GPS location. It knows that I'm in Nashville. And so you're not just collecting kind of the explicit information that's being uploaded, you can get these implicit informational pieces as well that can be used later in the call for, you're already in Nashville, let me find those tire shops that are going to be there for you in Nashville. So this kind of flex form upload is fantastic, especially paired with the Gen AI reasoning capabilities of, okay, analyzing that photo and figuring out what's going on inside of it.
Yeah.
I know APIs are a big piece for us,
Yep.
and so talk a little bit more about that.
I mean, this whole idea of chat with your APIs, it's really cool. I mean, what's going on here is Benjamin's just saying, yeah, I should go get my car looked at, right? And so what this is doing is actually doing a Google Maps lookup under the hood. So it figures out where Benjamin is in Nashville. It figures out, there's 2 options available. And then when he says, who can see me the earliest, it's able to look at structured data for the available appointments for the 2 and then conversationally provide a response. So for the first time ever, we're literally able to chat with APIs, chat with API responses, give the machine some structured data, and it's able to do this type of Q&A about that information.
Yeah, a little bit more there too. So when Gotti, said the tipsy airline, I mean, that's a logged out FAQ. That's anyone could ask that and anyone going from B to there. But if you think about a customer saying, hey, why did my bill go up this month? We can take a look at a logged in FAQ. Hey, this was my bill the previous month, and here was, the various policies I had. Here's the bill I've got this month and the previous policy, the new policies that I have, and really be able to do some reasoning of your bill went up for these reasons. And we're not having to program in every possible way that, it could go up. So this kind of ability to talk to APIs, be that a logged out FAQ knowledge base that's going to apply to everybody, or a logged in FAQ that's going to be particular to that customer, super powerful.
All right. And finally, an FAQ right here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a perfect example. We do the data dip, we realize that they're a platinum member, and so we're making decisions based on, different reasons why a customer might be a priority in a queue or, wants to be kind of like better recognized. And I think as you're thinking about your own data sources, I kind of challenge you. Gen AI shines this spotlight on the quality of your own data sources. And so think about those logged out data sources. How are my FAQs? Are they agreeing with one another? Do they live in all one place? That's something to start thinking about over the coming months because it's going to be very useful as you step into this automation journey. And then also thinking about, the quality of your customer data as well. Like, where does that live? Is it in multiple places? Is it kept up to date? And all of these pieces. It's kind of, we'll hold up our end of the bargain for making a great conversation if you can also look at the quality of your data. And it's not just for the callers, it's also going to be for the agents, it's also going to be for the self-service tooling.
Yeah, and then there's this really interesting example of credit card capture. We talked about this with Tanya earlier as well, right? This is an example of what many customers in this room will be familiar with, a restricted turn. And you should know this works exactly the same as it always has. So we do not send hypersensitive information, PCI data, HIPAA data, to any third-party large language models. Those are all handled by our proprietary systems. They get fully redacted at runtime the way they do today. So all of that information just as locked down and secure as it always was.
Yeah, and I think this is one of my favorite pieces. I mean, AI handoff is huge. I've seen the kind of screen pops that agents are working with, Sometimes it's like a notepad and they're like reading out of, just like, or the arcane, like you only get a 6-letter code in order to understand. Like I used to work in a contact center. I had to deal with these like really kind of bizarre handoffs that we would get from the IVR system. And so this is just such a much more full-featured, exactly who I'm talking to. It gives me that first sentence so I can do a dialogue cover while I scan the rest. It's got all the entities that were collected there, and it's kind of rich data that people can click into. And so I encourage anyone who's in this room that really wants to, take advantage of this. We're really looking for design partners because I know you've each got a kind of custom system that agents are looking at. And so we're really interested to hear from you about how would you see this working? Where would you see it being embedded? Are you willing to kind of throw away the tool that you have today and switch over, or do you want to kind of, have it work all together? So AI handoff is really the future of where this is going, and it's going to be a huge lift for the agents.
All right. Now, we didn't want to end this presentation without giving you a little sneak preview of stuff that is coming soon. So everything we've talked about today is live, it's in production. Come talk to us about it if you're interested in implementing this, if you're a current customer. But there's a lot of really exciting stuff in the works that our R&D team's working really hard on. And one of those things is actually the future of self-service. So this is, one of the biggest asks that we've gotten from a lot of our customers over the years. And the reason that self-service has been inherently challenging to execute on is that scalability challenge I talked about in the beginning, right? A complex flow, it can get into thousands of nodes and thousands upon thousands of scripted responses and, all of these intents that you have to train. It is a lot for a customer to manage. But now it's going to be as simple as providing a natural language description of a flow that you want to build, right? Greet the caller, ask how you can help them, complete steps X, Y, and Z, and that produces a really high-level flow, a high-level abstraction of what that system's going to look like. You no longer have to wrangle with every little node and every little script in the system and figure out what else it links up to. This is a level of abstraction that just allows you to say, okay, for this particular flow, I'm authenticating the caller. I want to do it by these 3 fields, and I want you to retry 2 times and then escalate to an agent if you're unable to do that. And all of the underlying logic just happens under the hood and is fully taken care of for you. So we're looking to a future where we're able to significantly improve the bar on resolution with absolutely no code. And this is a huge paradigm shift, and it's a super, super exciting advancement. And I wanted to bring it up because this is something the team is actively working on. And again, we're looking for design partners. So any customers in the room that want to join our beta of this product, please come talk to us after.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this piece because I think that low code and self-service is something that we know we needed to offer, from the beginning, but I didn't want to sacrifice the quality of the conversations. I was a little bit worried that if you had to go and teach everyone about states and transitions and intent modeling and entity extraction, it's a lot to kind of learn and understand how it's going to work. But on the other hand, you're saying, I don't want to pay these high professional services costs. I think this is something that I should be able to build myself. And so with low-code tools like this, where it's expressed in natural language, it's got testing behind the scenes, so we can know, hey, you release a new prompt, it trains the model in this particular way, it doesn't work for a lot of your calls that we've already seen. Or it doesn't work for a lot of the baseline tests that we know that the thinking machine needs to pass before we're able to release it. It's these kind of guardrails and it's these kind of low-code tools that we can finally step into with generative AI that's going to unlock not only better calls for your customers, being able to service the long tail of hey, I've only got 15 calls a week. I don't want to pay those professional services costs. So it's going to be a much lower cost for you in the long run of being able to automate these pieces.
And Benjamin hinted at this a little bit earlier, but this idea of just using the device in your pocket to initiate a lot of the service, right? There are certain things that are best described not in words, but in a picture. And OpenAI actually just recently launched this capability, and our teams are very excited about it. For any kind of troubleshooting flow, Tanya mentioned a triage flow earlier, right? Wouldn't it be cool if you could just snap a picture of the problem and then converse with the thinking machine on how to solve that, right? This is going to work better than just the spoken word for a lot of different use cases. In this particular case, you snap a picture of a flat tire and the system's able to walk you through how to fix it. And so this is what flex forms and multimodal are kind of headed towards, and sort of we're taking this to the next level. And I think this is going to be a really exciting innovation in just the different modalities that customers can interact with our thinking machines in.
Yeah, we're not quite to reading your brainwaves yet, but I mean, this is this is a reasonable next step on that path. And there's no more arguing about, well, do I need a toe or don't I need a toe? You can use that image to say, hey, looks like the tire's messed up, but you got a tire in the back, so we're not going to send a tow truck. We're going to send someone to do that repair. So I'm really excited for this multimodal support.
Yeah. With that, I think that's it. Hopefully people found this informative and useful. And if you want to come nerd out with Benjamin and I about
I'd love to talk about this stuff. And really thinking about, given these capabilities, how are you going to use this in your contact center? What are those multimodal images that you wish you could collect? Tell us more about the disambiguation that you'd like to work on. Tell us, hey, I've got a whole bunch of agents who are now leveling themselves up. They want to learn how to build this stuff in low code. That's where I'm so excited about our partnership and to step into this kind of bright future of automation together. So. Thank you so much, Meghna.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you,
time.
everyone.